My next guest is the Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
When in the history of economics has a government levied a tax upon a producer and that producer didn't roll that tax into the price? The answer Biden is giving to high gas prices is to push them even higher.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, if you tax a product, guess what? It becomes more expensive. And we don't have to look just in economic textbooks to prove that. We implemented a windfall profits tax back in 1980. It was a product of the Jimmy Carter administration, one of his numerous failures as a president that this current president apparently wants to emulate. What happened when we instituted a windfall profit tax back in the 80s? Well, guess what? Production declined in this country. We became more reliant on foreign sources of energy. And that's exactly what will happen if Biden gets his way once again. We already have an energy crisis on our hands. And this is the kind of policy that would make it much, much worse.
We are running out of diesel. We are already seeing home heating oil being rationed in the Northeast. It's not even cold outside yet. And you know what Biden doesn't talk about? The historic losses these companies took. I was reading Oil and Gas Journal. It's an industry website. And it said Exxon, BP, Shell, Chevron in total took losses of $76 billion combined. $22 billion ExxonMobil alone. So where's Joe Biden when they're losing, having record losses?
Right. Yeah. I don't know exactly what the Biden administration thinks about those losses, but of course they are partially responsible for it. Demand cratered during the pandemic. We know that. But at the same time, this administration was putting in some horrible anti-energy policies, destroying the Keystone Pipeline project, reining in the ability to drill and explore for oil and natural gas on public lands, raising royalty payments. So if you do drill, you have to pay the government even more money than you already did. So it's no surprise, of course, that after all of these policies, combined with the pandemic, that deserves part of the blame, we had record losses for the oil industry. They're just now beginning to recuperate those losses. They're just now beginning to return to pre-pandemic production levels. And what does this administration want to do? Wallop them with a new tax that, of course, will be passed down to consumers in the form of higher energy prices.
You know, he killed the Keystone XL pipeline while approving completion of the Nord Stream 2, rescinded land leases, stopped selling drilling permits, et cetera, et cetera. We've only built one refinery in 45 years. One. And the reason being is because left-wing lawyers and bureaucrats have done everything in their power through injunctions and regulations, changing regulations, making it near impossible for new refineries to be built. There's Joe Biden standing around saying, why don't we have new refineries? Because of your party. And as far as increasing production, first of all, it doesn't work like this. And why would this industry increase production of a product that Joe Biden wants to make extinct?
Yeah, there's no reason you would invest in these products. There's no reason you would invest in additional production capacity when you have a permitting process that could take years, even more than a decade at time, to go from the breaking ground to actually producing any form of energy, because it's become hostage. This entire process has become hostage to the environmental lobby, and they have stymied the ability to build production capacity, to drill, to have refining capacity. All of these things have to go through such enormous bureaucratic red tape that these projects are no longer economically viable. That's why we haven't seen more refining capacity come along. It's because of the Biden administration and his allies in the green lobby, of course.
Who does he think owns the majority of retail gas stations? They just have an obligation to bring down the price at the pump. Most gas stations are making their money either on service or beverages and snacks, right? It's not like the price at the pump makes big money. It's between 5 and 10 cents a gallon. I mean, you know who's the real profiteer? Here's government at all levels with taxes.
Right. Yeah, this small, it just drives me crazy when he attacks the gas station owners. Those are small business people by and large. And like you said, the profit margins on selling gasoline are razor thin. They make very, very little money selling gasoline. They make money when you come into the store and buy a hot dog and a cup of coffee and some soda, whatever it is. That is where they make their money. They want gas prices to be low, but they have very little control over what gas prices actually are set at. They are victims to whatever the upstream price points are. And of course, those have been squeezed because of government action, regulations, permitting delays, high taxes. All of these things take a bite out of what these small business owners can actually recoup.
You know, one government report showed that U.S. production increased, or our state of production increased our reliance on foreign energy sources from 3 to 13%. So that's a 10% increase on foreign sources.
Yeah, that's the windfall profits tax in action. It does increase reliance on foreign sources of energy. It brings in far less revenue than expected. When we instituted it in the 80s, we got about 20% of the revenue that was projected. So we don't have to look that far into the rearview mirror to learn these economic policy lessons, or we can just look across the pond to Europe. We have 15 countries in Europe in the process of, or that have already implemented windfall profits taxes, and they're already failing across the board. Italy, for instance, they said that they would bring in 11 billion euros. They brought in about 2 billion euros, and they've messed up their ability to actually provide fuel for their consumers, to heat their homes and so forth, by instituting this economy-wrecking tax.
You know, it's funny. This is what they wanted to happen. They wanted gas prices to rise to force people to make different decisions. They just didn't want it to be so damned unpopular.
Right. It sounds good in theory until people get very upset. You know, the very people that they claim they are helping here, that they claim that they want to help as their administrative goals, they're hurting. The blue-collar workers, the average Americans that are squeezing by in a very, very difficult economy with record high inflation, those are the people that feel the pain when they go to fill up their gasoline tank and it costs $75 instead of $35. And that is the people right now that they're trying to help, at least in rhetoric, but their policies are doing the exact opposite. Their policies are making gasoline more expensive, they're making inflation higher, and they're making it more difficult to survive in this tough economy.
Yeah, that, and we're begging the communists in Venezuela. I mean, my God, you know, the Communist Party down there is going to be very excited to sell us oil because now they'll get some money where their economy was just in a downward spiral like a toilet flushing. But, you know, along comes Biden. I'm not producing it. We'll buy it from you. All right, I got to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, coming up.